Hi everyone, I'm Ashley. I will be presenting number 9 aria and chorus from The Messiah by George Friedrich Handel. First, let's start with the definition of an aria. A self-contained composition for solo voice, usually with instrumental accompaniment and occurring within the context of a larger form, such as opera, oratorio, or cantata. This aria is for an alto solo in the key of D major. It is in 6/8 time and it is beat in 2. For the instrumentation, violins are used along with basso continuo and bassoon, which is indicated by the confag at the bottom of the score. The basso continuo part was most likely played on a harpsichord, and the violin part was most likely played by just the first chair of the violin section, or at least one violin out of this section, and that's indicated by the sense of rip at the top of the score. There's also no viola used during this aria. The alto solo appears at measure 13. Definition of a senza rip. Senza means without. Rip is short for piano, which means played without double parts or tutti. Senza rip essentially means without tutti. Definition of confag. Con means with, and fag is short for fagot, which is bassoon in German, so confag means with bassoon. Senza fag means without bassoon. The terms confag and senza fag occur many times throughout this movement. The text for this aria comes from Isaiah chapter 40, verse 9, from the King James Version. O Zion, that bringest good tidings, get thee up into the high mountain. O Jerusalem, that bringest good tidings, lift up thy voice with strength. Lift it up, be not afraid. Say unto the cities of Judah, Behold your God. From the end of measure 75 through measure 105, from pages 38 to 39, the text comes from Isaiah chapter 60, verse 1. Arise, shine, for thy light is come, and the glory of the Lord is risen upon thee. There are several key changes throughout this movement. Key changes that occur are E major, A major, G major, and there are actually a couple of places that change to E minor, and then it changes back to D major before the chorus. From measures 44 through 47 on page 37 in the Messiah score, there's transposition from G major to A major to B minor, and then to D major. The chords used in this aria are mainly triads. The 1 and 5 chords are the main chords that are used. There are some 7th chords, and an example would be at measure 55. There, on the 4th count, the 7th is in the bass, creating a 5-4-2 chord. This is the only chord in this inversion in this movement. 6-5 inversions are also seen. On measure 58, beat number 4, there's a pretty interesting chord here. It's a cluster. There's an F sharp and an A in the bass, a G and an A in the treble, and then an E in the alto. This is the only chord like this in this movement. There are some patterns that reoccur throughout the aria and are also seen in the chorus. One example would be the first 12 measures of the aria are also seen at the end of the chorus on page 42. Another pattern would be measures 3 through 4 in the aria. An example would be of its recurrence at measure 19 through 20. The only difference is from beats 4, 5, and 6, instead of having 16th notes going up, there are 2 8th notes and an 8th rest, in which the 8th notes go down. Actually, the pattern on measures 19 to 20 is seen a few more times throughout the aria. Another pattern that I found kind of neat occurs at the end of measure 12 through measure 16, where it says, "O thou that tellest good tidings to Zion." That melody in the alto is echoed in the violins. And then that same phrase occurs at the end of measure 20 through measure 24 on page 36. Again, the violins echo the alto part, and the violins play this echo an octave higher than the alto. In this aria, there are no problems with the spacing for the alto. The motion is mainly stepwise. There are some leaps of thirds, fourths, fifths, and even some sixths. Now let's talk about the chorus. A chorus is a body of singers who perform together, either in unison or in parts, usually with more than one on a part. At measure 105, on the bottom of the score, it says Attica chorus. One correction from what I have in the photo, there are actually two C's in Attica and not one. Attica chorus means to begin the chorus immediately. Attica means attack immediately. Hence, when it placed at the end of one movement, an instruction to begin the next movement immediately without the customary pause. The text for the chorus returns to Isaiah chapter 40, verse 9. The chorus begins in D major, and it actually, there are several times that it changes keys. Key changes are from D to A major, and returns to D major, and there are a couple places where it changes to E minor, and then it changes back to D major for the end. On measure 106 on page 39, the violins break into violins 1 and 2. They don't actually play different parts until measure 108, where it says con rip. The viola is also added here on measure 108. The bassoon comes back in on measure 107 along with the bass vocal. Soprano comes in on measure 106, and the oboes 1 and 2 play the soprano part as well. The tenor comes in on measure 108, and the alto returns on measure 110. There are no problems with the spacing for the soprano, alto, or tenor parts, but the bass does exceed its range in a few places. One occurrence seen in the photo on measure 110, page 39, the bass hits a D4 and an E4, which the normal range for bass only goes to a C4. Another example of bass hitting a D4 would be on measure 121 on page 41. The only occurrence of an E4 is at measure 110. Now for the motions. I analyzed the motions between the soprano and bass, and I found that it's mainly contrary. There's some static motion, and there's two measures at the end of the chorus on measures 134 through 136 on page 42. That's nothing but static motion. It occurs in the soprano, tenor, and bass parts. The motion for all the vocals is mainly stepwise. and there are some leaps that occur. In the text for both the aria and the chorus, there are some examples of word painting that I want to point out. On measure 31, page 36, on the aria, on the word mountain, the alto moves from an F4 to an A4, and the use of the 16ths and 8ths in there represent the kind of like the struggling of climbing the mountain until finally it resolves on the A. We've reached the top of the mountain. On measure 137, page 42 of the chorus, on the word risen, the soprano leaps a fourth. The alto leaps up an octave, and the tenor leaps up a fourth as well. This is representing the glory of the Lord, which is risen upon us. One final place I want to bring attention to for word painting is on page 37, measure 43 of the aria, where it says, "Lift up thy voice with strength, lift it up." On the words "lift up," the alto moves from an A3 to a D4, which this motion of moving up is also echoed by the violins. And thy voice from a B3 to an E4, and the violins again echo the upward movement. This occurs throughout this transposition.